Tigers, number one. Go Tigers.
And the next 4 years, I'm going to Denver University.
Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977. Now, here's D Squared.
Welcome, everyone, to this Thursday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D Squared, Drew DeArmond. Really excited to be with you again today from 9 to 10 a.m. for great recruiting conversation. And I got to tell you, too, recruiting never stops, especially around this time of year. As we said, we're about 2 weeks away from that December the 21st signing date. The 21st through the 23rd is when you'll see young men, especially in football, sign early. A lot of them are going to enroll early in the few weeks ahead in January and get ready for spring football at their institutions that they choose. And, of course, with NIL, it makes everything so crazy, and you'll see flips and everything else. Just on Talking Ball, we were talking about Deion Sanders a lot today and what happened to him during his 3 years leading that SWAC program to heights they'd never seen, really. And, he pulled off some of those flips on signing day, including Travis Hunter, who will probably be headed with him to Colorado. If I were Travis, that's certainly what I would do. I would go with Coach Prime, who's meant a lot to my career. And he's one, Travis Hunter, when healthy, was considered probably the number one overall prospect in the country. He's a two-way guy that can play offense and defense. And now he'll be able to play on the Power 5 level in the Pac-12, who had, I think, a little bit of a resurgence this year. So Coach Prime certainly, I think, going to make some headlines in Boulder. And maybe for the first time they're going to be relevant since the days of Bill McCartney. He did such a great job there. Leading them to heights we've never seen, to a national championship with Eric Bieniemy, Darian Hagan, all those guys, Canavis McGee. I remember those football teams, very hard-nosed. They were built a lot like, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, too. They ran the option. They became a nationally relevant program, did CU, and hopefully for the first time since those days, they're going to be relevant once again. As I think it's a great hire by Colorado. They're able to pull it off. I thought Deion might go back to the Sunshine State, where he was a prep legend, and then at Florida State and go to South Florida. But he went to Colorado, and I hear Boulder's beautiful. I've never been out there, but it's a beautiful area. Very cold, but very scenic. And it's now they are in the Pac-12 instead of the Big 8 conference, and so. They've had some fits and spurts, but no consistency. But it's going to be very interesting to see what Coach Prime, a.k.a. Deion Sanders, can do. And his first team meeting, the 7 minutes they put up on Twitter, I thought was really, really good. I'd certainly want to play for that guy. I loved his swag when he played at FSU coming up when I was a kid and in the NFL. He had one of the all-time quotes ever when he got drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. And was, I believe, picked 5th overall. That was a great draft, by the way. That '89 draft. Troy Aikman was the number 1 overall pick. Some dude named Derek Thomas. He and LT, the greatest pass rushers of all time. Was picked 4th. 3rd was Barry Sanders, I believe, to the Detroit Lions. It was just an amazing, amazing NFL draft. And a lot of Hall of Famers went in that draft. And I'll never forget Deion saying he was so happy that Detroit didn't draft him where Barry ended up going. He said, because I would have asked for so much money that had to put me on layaway. I think layaway is a thing of the past, but Deion was ahead of his time. He and Bo Jackson, I think the two greatest athletes of their era, because they were able to play professional sports at a very high level in 2 different sports, and that's football and Major League Baseball. And Deion, arguably the greatest cover corner in the history of the game, a guy that could take an entire side of the field away, could run a 4.2, 4.3 40, and could high step and almost do it. Just an amazing athlete, Deion Sanders, and his rise in coaching has been very interesting from the prep level in Texas to Jackson State and elevating that program, and then now we're going to see what he can do at Colorado. what they can do with NIL, what they can do, in recruiting, and he's so charismatic. It's just going to be, I think, one of the fascinating storylines to follow in all of college football. And so I think he got SWAC. He got the SWAC in Jackson State on College Game Day in 3 years. Got them so much exposure, which is great for HBCUs. It's what they need. I mean, he was a shot in the arm for that league, and it's going to be interesting to see where the SWAC goes from here now that Dion is gone, because I think he's been the best thing that's happened to the Jackson State and the SWAC in many, many years. But he's now moving on to major college Power 5 football, and we'll see if he can revive Colorado and if he can make them a viable program once again, and for the first time consistently in the Pac-12. And the Pac-12 needs it. He's going to give the Pac-12 a lot of relevancy because all those games come on late here in the Central Time Zone. You're talking 9:30 at night, but still, Dion's going to be must-see TV. He'll have, a university behind him in Colorado, a Pac-12 network, a league. So that's going to be very exciting for them, no question about it. I know he had a deep relationship with Under Armour. Now Colorado's a Nike school. That's going to be interesting, with Dion. But Dion, of course, had a relationship with Nike when he was a player. And so he had his own shoe. He had his own gear. I certainly had some of it when I was a kid. So it's going to be really, really fascinating to see, no question about it. But I'll tell you what else is great, and that is this new streaming channel for us, and that's the Blitz Sports Radio. And you guys that are listening, we certainly appreciate your listens and your certainly your commentary and your support. This is our first football season with the Blitz Sports Radio, and we hope to continue to grow it and grow this channel. And we can't do it without you. Please go to the Apple Store, the Google Store, and download the Blitz Sports Radio app. And so many of you have already downloaded our sister station, 97.7 The Zone. Of course, you heard Scott Tyson now on Talking Ball. We just wrapped that up from 7 to 9 a.m. Please continue to download that app as well, the 97.7 The Zone app. We so appreciate that. And you supporting us at the Google Store, the Apple Store. So download both of our apps. We are the kings of local sports talk in the Tennessee Valley and in North Alabama and Madison County, and that's what our backbone is, local programming. But we know how much people love recruiting around here, and so we're so blessed to have some outstanding student athletes both in the high school and college level here that we are able to cover. We want to give high school athletics a voice at 97.7 The Zone and on the Blitz Sports Radio, and that's really what's behind this show, to talk about recruiting, because recruiting it never stops, but it still centers around high school kids. Now, the transfer portal is something we're all having to get used to and cover, and that involves transfers with student athletes from one college to another. JT Daniels and his odyssey continues. He's leaving West Virginia to go to, I guess, his fourth college, because he's already been to USC, Georgia, West Virginia, and now this will be the fourth with 6 years playing, I guess. But again, the players have a lot of freedom now, probably too much in a way. I mean, I think they should be able to transfer once during their 4 or 5 year career without having to sit out. And if you want to do it again, you either have to graduate, and that's what it's all about. Graduate, get your degree in hand, and you can go wherever you want, or you need to have to sit out if you want to transfer again. But the transfer portal has become very real. Over 1,000 people have already gone into it, and that's just the climate that we are in today. And we're going to continue to cover that. And we're going to cover it with Hank South coming up in just a few minutes from BamaOnline.com, part of 24/7 Sports. He has joined us numerous times on Talking Ball on ESPN 97.7 The Zone, and he's going to join us once again, I believe for the second time, as Hank South going to join us on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline for the recruiting blitz, and he's going to catch us up on Alabama recruiting, because it's a very busy time of the year for Hank. I mean, he has a growing, burgeoning family with his wife, Kelly. I think they just recently had their anniversary, and she's they've got 2 children, and he has a beautiful family, and of course he's raising his family. But this time of year for a recruiting writer, it's never, it goes 365 days a year, but when you're covering it now, the final 3 weeks till signing day, it's you just got to sleep fast. And we'll talk some Alabama. Looks like they've lined up a visitor in the from the transfer portal for this weekend. We'll talk about the weekend coming up because of Quay Russaw and James Smith, and they have been a hot topic on this show and on Talking Ball on ESPN 97.7 The Zone. James Smith, defensive tackle, probably the top prospect along with Peter Woods in the state of Alabama. Right behind them is his James Smith's teammate Quay Russaw, 5-star edge rusher. I mean, the consensus seems to be that Alabama and Auburn are the top two. Auburn's always been lurking there, and now they have Hugh Freeze as the leader of their program, and he's getting his staff together. Wesley McGriff being hired. I think they've still got to hire a quote-unquote DC. I mean, Wesley McGriff may be a co-DC, but they need to make a defensive coordinator hire. They have not yet. Looks like Kent Austin has been hired. Quarterback guru would probably be the OC or at least co-OC for Liberty under Hugh Freeze. He was, I think, officially hired yesterday and out recruiting for Auburn. He was part of that Liberty staff and has been an outstanding coach. So he's been, and McGriff was also part of at Ole Miss what Hugh Freeze was doing. So Hugh has brought a lot of familiarity with him, a lot of assistant coaches and player personnel, off-field people with him from Liberty to Auburn, and getting guys like Wesley McGriff back. Wesley McGriff was actually part of Scott Satterfield's staff at Louisville last year, and now this past season, Satterfield is going to now be going to the University of Cincinnati. His offensive coordinator, Lance Taylor, who ironically is a former walk-on and a member of the University of Alabama football team. Lance had been for many years the running backs coach, run game coordinator under Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. He had gone to Louisville to be Scott Satterfield's OC. He's not going with him to Cincinnati because it looks like through Pete Thamel of ESPN that every indication is he will be the next coach of the Western Michigan Broncos. It looks like Lance Taylor is going to get a chance to run his own program. So huge congrats to him. I know he's also spent some time in the NFL, but he has steadily risen up the coaching ladder. So former University of Alabama special team standout and walk-on Lance Taylor, who got on the field for the Crimson Tide and rose through the coaching ranks, is now looking like at a very young age going to run his own program at Western Michigan, and we congratulate him. And we talked about this yesterday on Talking Ball. Barry Odom, he was considered a candidate potentially for Auburn defensive coordinator and had been the last few years under Sam Pittman during his administration and his start at Arkansas for 3 years. But Barry Odom is going back to be getting another shot at being a head coach. He was a head coach at Missouri, we know, had some success, a modicum of it, but not enough, was dismissed, and is now going to take on the arduous task of trying to revive the UNLV football program. And I don't think Randall Cunningham's walking through that door, but UNLV is a very difficult job, but it looks like Barry Odom is going to take that and going to move out to Nevada, Las Vegas, and be their football coach as that has come down this week. And again, we want to congratulate Will Anderson. He's won the Bednarik Award and the Lombardi Award in the last couple of days, 2 National Defensive Player of the Year awards. I know some have said he didn't have as good a year, and he didn't. He didn't have the 100 tackles and the 17.5 sacks, but he did have 10 sacks. He had 51 tackles and 60 pressures. He had more pressures than anybody in college football this year. He was double and triple teamed some because of being Will Anderson. So he was a guy that drew a lot of attention and still had a really, really good year for Alabama. Certainly, I think we've figured out he's not Derek Thomas, but he is certainly on the short list of the best defensive players of the Nick Saban era. I still think that's Minkah Fitzpatrick. For me, I think Minkah is the best player that I've seen pound for pound defensively under Nick Saban and during his time in Tuscaloosa, which is now 16 years nearly in, as Alabama still has to finish up this 2022 season with that Sugar Bowl matchup, on New Year's Eve on the 11 a.m. December the 31st, Alabama. And you'll hear that here on our sister station on ESPN 97.7 The Zone. Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. They will take on the Kansas State Wildcats, the Big 12 champions of Chris Kleiman, who came over from North Dakota State. They are going to take on the University of Alabama on December the 31st. And this is going to be a huge game for K-State. They're trying to win 11 games. I think they're 10-3 on the year. Alabama trying to win 11. And then the big question is Will Anderson going to play in that game? Is Bryce Young, Jordan Battle, those are your three team captains. Brian Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs. Who's going to play, who is not? I mean, that has not been really released yet. Alabama not practicing right now for said bowl game that's coming up in a few days. And, they'll start preparing for Kansas State officially, and they'll release the bowl itinerary and everything, and they'll start out practicing on campus and then go to New Orleans to play the game. But right now, Nick Saban and his staff are worried about recruiting, and they're trying to finish out the top-ranked recruiting class in the country. Kirby Smart certainly not making that easy. The defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs, 13-0, unbeaten SEC champions for the second time in his career, and now they're trying to be national champions for the first time, the second time back-to-back, but they're trying to win back-to-back national championships in Athens and be the second SEC program to do that in the last 10 years. Alabama doing it in 2011 and 2012. But what they're trying to do also is overtake Alabama for the number one recruiting class in the country. So that is going to be very interesting and a fight till the end as Georgia continues to add pieces. Alabama trying to add some more. Alabama trying to add Keon Keeley, James Smith, Quay Russaw. That could be 3 more 5-stars right there, and would make Alabama very difficult to catch for the top recruiting class. And we'll see. Is Alabama going to step up their NIL game? We've talked about it. Nick Saban has been kind of reluctant to want to pay up front like many of these schools are doing, but maybe he's going to change his mind, because he certainly did about the hurry up, no huddle when they weren't trying to kind of tweak the rules to favor the offenses and to favor and not call a legal man and an eligible man downfield. They've gotten better at that, but for a few years there, when Gus Malzahn did the Zenith at Auburn, they weren't calling it. So Nick Saban was like, well, if this is they want football to be so offensively driven, we are going to change and we are going to compete at the highest level. And he brought in Lane Kiffin, and the rest is history. He wins national championships in 15, national championships in 17 and 20. He's won 3 more rings, and he's played for it 2 other times. He played for it 3 more times, in 2016, 2018, and then 2021. So Nick Saban always adapts. He adapted the bump rule with video conferencing. He adapted his offense. He certainly adapted to the transfer portal and gotten key pieces out of there. And so we're going to see what Nick Saban decides to do going forward, with the NIL situation and how Alabama finishes this recruiting class and the coaching changes we're going to see, because Charles Kelly, the safeties coach for the last few seasons, who came over from Tennessee, done a great job recruiting, especially James Smith and Quay Russaw. It looks like we mentioned Coach Prime at the start of our segment. It looks like he's going to follow Deion Sanders and be his defensive coordinator at Colorado. And this shouldn't surprise anybody, because he and Deion have a relationship. Deion has always been close to Florida State since he played there for Coach Bowden. Charles Kelly, for several years under Dirt Neck, a.k.a. Jimbo Fisher, was his defensive coordinator at Florida State, helped him win a lot of games. Then rightly and smartly got away from Dirt Neck and to save his career. I think, certainly I think they had a mutual parting of the ways, but Charles Kelly is probably the best thing that ever happened to him, to get away from Jimbo, because all Jimbo does is wreck careers, because he still thinks it's 1998 with his offensive playbook and not being able to manage his roster. And shocker, Chris Marshall, freshman receiver, a standout possession-type guy, he goes into the transfer portal. So yet another Texas A&M Aggie trying to get out of ATM. No one should be shocked by that, because they actually want to be developed. And we've already said Tunmai Adele, former 5-star defensive lineman, he's in the portal. And I think there's going to be others that follow them. They may be able to keep some of them in there, and we'll see. And they certainly got a big commitment yesterday, no doubt about it, because of the fallout with Scott Satterfield. Scott Satterfield being the coach at Louisville, and Louisville had made some splashes in recruiting because of NIL. And they did an outstanding job, and were able to, flip a young man, and they were able to get Reuben Owens, a 5-star running back who had been committed to Louisville and is now miraculously flipped to the Texas A&M Aggies. And, of course, A&M needs him because Devon Achane, who is as good as any running back in the SEC, so explosive, even though he didn't play on a good football team, a 5-7 team. He is leaving after his junior year, world-class track speed, to go to the NFL draft. I still think with his workouts, and if he goes to the combine and whatnot, he could get into the first round. That guy, you cannot teach the kind of explosive speed that he has. But Devon Achane going to the NFL draft, and now Reuben Owens flipping to Texas A&M. But as we told you, Chris Marshall is in the transfer portal. He had been suspended. He was one of those guys that was in his last 5 games. He was, not on the field for Texas A&M, but a very talented young man, and he'll probably have a long list of suitors. But speaking of suitors, speaking of recruiting, we are going to be, after we come back from the next break, Hank South, longtime recruiting reporter for BamaOnline.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, is going to join us, and we're going to talk Alabama Crimson Tide recruiting with one of the best in the business. Stay with us here on the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared on Blitz Sports Radio. Hank South up next.
This is Wes Neighbors with Philip with Eagle Insulation, and we have an announcement to make.
Yes, Wes, we are now Eagle Masonry and Insulation. Still a place to call for your installation needs, but now we offer masonry services.
What kind of masonry projects can you handle?
Wes, no job is too big, no job is too small. We can do renovations, new construction, outdoor fireplaces, fire pits, brick landscape borders.
Well, when you came out to my house, you did both the insulation and masonry at the same time. You guys did rock for me, you did brick for me, and you insulated my house. That's usually done at the same time that you're building a house.
Absolutely. It really capitalizes on 2 services you need at the same time, and you can get one company to handle both of those.
Philip with Eagle Insulation will come out, do your installation. He'll do your masonry. They do a great job. They guarantee your work. Check out more online at insulatedwitheagle.com and schedule your free examination today. 256-755-1556.
Thanks, Wes.
With us today, Dr. Tracy Lowry of Best Vein Care of Huntsville.
When we evaluate a patient and they indeed have significant venous disease, most third-party payers, private insurance, Medicare, require us to treat every patient conservatively at least 90 days. Conservative treatment includes increasing ambulation, elevation of the legs, and the wearing of compression stockings. It's very common for folks to come see us in March or April wanting to have their veins fixed before they go into swimsuits starting in June. When we see someone in March or April, they're going to require at least 90 days of conservative treatment before we can even go to the insurance carrier to get permission to treat their veins. So if you think you have a venous problem, now is the time to come in and get a free screening so we can determine whether or not you need something evaluated. If you have a vein problem or you think you may have a vein problem, now's the time to contact us at bestveincarehuntsville.com.
Tom Luganbill here for my friends at Woody Anderson Ford. Bobby White and his team take great pride in their service department, and you can see it the moment you walk into those beautiful new service lanes. And just like a championship team, they all work together to make sure your experience is second to none, whether you drive a Ford or not. Also, check out the gold certified pre-owned inventory at Woody Anderson Ford for great deals every day. Stop by and see them at Jordan and Sparkman or at Woody Anderson of Madison on Hughes Road, or visit WoodyAndersonFord.com.
This hour of the Blitz is brought to you by Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Online at FlemingHSV.com.
The United States Postal Service knows holiday wish lists better than Santa himself. Really?
Dear Santa, this year I've been really good. Like, really, really good. And that's why I'd like a hippo hat, hippo gloves, and hippo sunglasses. And maybe a hippo coloring book.
During the holidays, we deliver, especially when it comes to hippos. In fact, we deliver more online purchases to homes than anyone else in the country. No matter what's on your wish list, our priority is you.
This hour of the Blitz is brought to you by Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Online at FlemingHSV.com. The Blitz has been called.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D Squared, Drew DeArmond. Another great show today. I appreciate you listening here on our streaming channel, and that is Blitz Sports Radio. Please download the app at the Google Store, the Apple Store, the Blitz Sports. You will not be disappointed. Later today from 2 to 4, don't forget the Bandyman Bailey Lowry and Captain Cool John Abraham will bring you the afternoon Blitz, and they'll have two great special guests. Crawdad Crawford is going to be previewing Army-Navy, which you'll be able to hear on the Blitz this Saturday. As I said, one of the top three, I think, rivalries in all of college football. Army-Navy will be on at 2 o'clock, and you'll be able to hear that on the Blitz. And they're going to talk with him and preview it. Army trying to bounce back, lost to Navy last year. And they're also going to have Max Schulman. We had John Schulman on, talking ball. And then Max Schulman, his son, a super senior at UAH, graduate student, a guy that may be a doctor by the time he leaves UAH. He's played so long. Was a star for his dad at Macaulay in Chattanooga, and is just an outstanding player for UAH, and his father, he is going to join them as well. So a great show on the afternoon Blitz. Be sure to tune in for that. And just officially released by Western Michigan University, Lance Taylor is the new head football coach. They said, welcome to the zoo, former University of Alabama graduate assistant football player, part of that staff, and has risen up the coaching ranks very quickly, and very young head football coach, but he gets his first opportunity to run his own program at Western Michigan. And a really good mid-major program too. So some action going on. Congratulations to Lance Taylor. But now our next guest, speaking of the University of Alabama, he does an outstanding job covering them for BamaOnline.com. He is their recruiting writer, does an outstanding job covering and tracking Alabama football recruiting. And this time of year, as we've said, a lot of coffee, you got to sleep fast. Things always going on with the transfer portal. He broke some news yesterday with recruiting in high school, junior college, and trying to break news and stay on top of it. And that's Hank South, and he's with us on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Hank, I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas to you. Happy holidays to you and your family. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, Jim. Good. How are you, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, man. No doubt about it. We appreciate the time. Always a busy one for recruiting, especially this time of year. We talked about it on the show yesterday. Hard to believe because I kind of lost track of the days, but I kept saying 3 weeks. It's really now 2 weeks until signing day on the 21st.
Yeah, it's wild. You factor in the transfer portal opening up on December 5th, and just everything going on this time of year with coaches on the road and the regular season coming to an end. It kind of all hits you quicker than you expect. So, yeah, it's actually, less than 2 weeks now. It's 13 days away. So, definitely closing time for this Alabama staff. A couple more visitors weekends coming up. We'll see some visits elsewhere throughout the country, and it'll all lead up to that big week, December 21st through 23rd.
And Alabama has been the consensus top-ranked class in the country. Some were worried because of NIL and the impact, how Nick Saban would adapt. And there's been a word that maybe Alabama is going to approach it differently than some other schools like the Miamis, like the Tennessees that have and Louisville. But now Louisville's lost their head coach, so we see a guy like Reuben Owens flipping quickly to Texas A&M. How's it been now in this last 2 years, and now we have a first full year under the belts of NIL. How has it changed covering recruiting for you with NIL being involved?
Yeah, overall, covering Alabama in particular, it really doesn't feel like it's changed all that much. Like you just said, Bama's still healthfully up atop the recruiting rankings. They're still dominating. They're still getting the guys that they typically get. I would say just across the recruiting landscape as a whole, you see more surprises. You just mentioned Reuben Owens when he committed to Louisville. I think everyone was
shocked, yeah,
a little surprised by that. Yeah, we saw Cormani McClain kind of shock everyone a couple months ago and commit to Miami over Florida. Definitely you see that kind of stuff. You see more surprises. I think in a way it levels the playing field a little bit with schools that are able to use NIL more to their benefit. But at the same time, I think the Blue Bloods, the Alabamas, the Ohio States, Georgias, those programs are still going to get those big guys because at the end of the day, NIL is going to be available there, and also you get the development, the prestige, and all that with the programs like Alabama. So it's definitely changed, but at the same time, Bama's still it's a lot of the same with the the big fish they're able to attract to Alabama.
Yeah, they are. There's no doubt about it. They've been able to still get some outstanding players. And then, and I wanted to give you kudos because you were the first one that I saw tweet about it. And then talk about the visit. It looks like being set up this weekend, and we'll let you fill in some of the blanks here. But Alabama, the transfer portal has become a big part of this. I mean, and before we delve into it, though, the transfer portal itself, you had a chance to cover it now for a few years. It's almost become as big a story as signing day coming up, especially now with the window being open in December. It's almost a second phase of recruiting that you have to cover now.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was similar to that last year. You know, on early signing day, the high school class wrapped up, and then that night, Eli Ricks announced he was going to transfer to Alabama. So, you know, then you have stories like Jahmyr Gibbs and obviously Jermaine Burton. So it goes, you know, hand in hand with the high school recruiting now. But yeah, it's its own thing. You know, you see recruiting services like 24/7 Sports. We now factor in, you know, the transfer rankings into the overall team rankings, and so it's definitely become a major part of it all. You know, how Bama approaches it, it kind of just depends. I think it's kind of on a case-by-case basis. If they see a kid they like, you know, maybe they'll approach him when he goes in the portal, but at the same time, they want to finish out this high school class strong too, because, you know, at the end of the day, they still want to develop these kids. They want to be able to, you know, unless, you know, they find a kid that can help them immediately, they think can be a real player for them, they're going to go after them. But, you know, it's still important to them to get, you know, go by their evals and you know, the talent they scout throughout the recruiting cycle and finish that strong as well.
And we're talking to Hank South, recruiting reporter for BamaOnline.com, part of 24/7 Sports. And then we'll segue into that. A visit being set up. Looks like Alabama may have found their first target in the transfer portal. Now, as you reported, not an offer yet officially from Alabama, but a visit. Talk about the young man that Alabama may be targeting in the portal.
Yeah, so Maryland, he's a tight end transfer from Maryland. CJ, I'm not positive how to say his last name. I think it's Dupree, but a former 2021 recruit. So he's played for 2 years at Maryland. You know, he's not got the eye-popping stats. You know, he had his best year this past season, like 300-something yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. But something, you know, the Bama sees something they like in him. You know, obviously they need a tight end that can kind of do it all, whether it be receiving and blocking and a little bit of all that. But we caught up with him last night. He's set to officially visit Bama later this week. As far as his arrival date, not positive. It's just going to be this week. So, you know, we're keeping an eye on that. But, yeah, Joe Cox, the tight ends coach, visited him earlier this week. And he's been getting a lot of interest in the portal. You know, he already has offers from Ole Miss and Nebraska. Matt Rule's his new staff and a few others. So we'll see if Bama pulls the trigger. But it seems pretty apparent that Bama wants to go add another tight end in this class, if not more than just another. You know, they have Ty Lockwood, but, you know, we see them still recruiting guys like Lawson Lucky, Luke Kaz, Deuce Robinson, and then Tim Watts on BOL mentioned the other night that a guy that might have interest in Bama is Jaheim Bell, the South Carolina transfer that might be the best tight end available in the portal at this point in time. So definitely a lot of guys at that position that are worth watching.
No question about it, and you're right. It does seem like they want another tight end, and I know they signed 3 last year in the class, and Amari Nyblack has shown a lot of potential, and it'll be interesting to see how much he grows. In the next year, and how much weight he can put on his frame, because he had a touchdown catch earlier this year. I know he started getting on the field, like Danny Lewis as well from Shreveport, Louisiana. I think he passes the eye test. Miles Kitselman, let's not forget about him, late junior college addition, and Elijah Brown. So they've got some tight ends, 3 high school and a JUCO. But it sounds like, they like Lockwood, but it almost seems that they want a guy, Hank, as you said, that can do it all. And if they don't add another high school kid, just maybe someone like this CJ Dupree that can come in and had 30 catches, 339 yards, and 3 touchdowns for Maryland, who had a solid year under Mike Loxley, but could come in and potentially be a 3-down tight end, not just a flex guy, and probably be able to block on the edge in the running game. Because from what I'm hearing, and I think we saw it on the field the last 2.5 games, and it'll be interesting to see how they how they play in the Sugar Bowl and who plays in the Sugar Bowl, but that Nick Saban trying to get back to being more physical on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made a good point on that. I think that tight end position is something they really want to hit. And it's still to be determined, I guess. Technically, unless I'm off by a year, Cam Letu can return if he wants to. So,
see, how do you keep on? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. It drives me bananas because is it? And I know you talk to a lot of people, Hank. You and Tim. Is the 20 season just basically not counting? So anybody that played gets another year. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I believe that anybody that they get an extra COVID year. I believe. I think I'm almost positive Letu has the option to come back if he wants to. But even with Letu, everyone's criticism of him is this year's blocking, but which I think he didn't get enough credit on some occasions. But I think that position is important to find a guy that can do it all. Like you said, be a 3-down tight end.
Well, yeah, because I was wondering. I thought Emil Ekiyor might come back, but he accepted a Senior Bowl invite. So it's obvious He has decided to move on. And that's what – and I know you guys covered this extensively last year. It became obvious once Eric Wolford was named the offensive line coach and that they needed – and after spring they wanted a left tackle. They went out and got Tyler Steen, who is considered the best left tackle prospect in the portal from Vanderbilt. He has not accepted a Senior Bowl invite. I think he has the option to return.
Yeah, that was his thing. Is when he transferred to Bama, he had 2 years of eligibility left. So he could certainly be a guy, depending on what his draft feedback is, that could opt to come back, and that would be big because obviously he was playing well and could help Bama in at that spot, the most important spot on the offensive line. So especially depending on who's playing quarterback, to have that kind of safeguard with experience and all that coming back a year under his belt with the system, that could be huge.
It really could. And Hank, I know you guys do a great job on 24/7 Sports, and you guys have been covering the coaches on the road, and that's where what they're doing right now. They're not preparing for the Sugar Bowl, as moreover they're on the road trying to finish off this recruiting class. And I know you guys have a thread up with what's going on. What's the itinerary for the coaches today?
Yeah, so we're seeing Nick Saban visit a couple commits. He's going to see Cole Adams in Oklahoma. He's expected to see Malik Benson in Kansas, I believe. Yeah, Kansas. And Malik Benson's getting set to play in the JUCO championship game next week. I think it's next Wednesday night, the 14th, whatever day that is. And then a couple of the coaches are seeing Malik Muhammad, the Texas quarterback commit, who's in Texas, just outside Dallas. Bill O'Brien's expected to see Samson Okunlola, the 5-star tackle from Connecticut. And there's going to be other visits. That's just we obviously don't just have a list of where they're all going. You kind of have to dig and figure out, where all the targets are expected. So, you can expect plenty of other stops, but that's kind of the most notable ones we've learned of so far.
And I believe that you're talking about next Wednesday, December the 14th. Hudson, is that the JUCO National Championship game?
I believe so. Yeah, I think they play Iowa Western.
Oh, there we go. So Malik Benson, who some believe is the #1 overall junior college prospect in the country, a long-time commitment. Holman Wiggins committing him to the University of Alabama. They actually were recruiting him when they found Miles Kitselman, that tight end. And then, of course, Hank bringing up Cole Adams, who missed the majority of his senior season at Owasso in Oklahoma, but it's an explosive slot receiver, punt returner, very excited about it. And then, as he said, Malik Muhammad committed to Texas, but they're Alabama trying to get him on campus. And then I know there was a story yesterday about Kermani McClain. You mentioned him earlier in our conversation. He's from Lakeland, Florida, arguably the #1 corner in the country. He's been committed to Miami. As you said, he shocked everyone. Everybody thought he was going to Florida. There's been some buzz that he might visit Alabama this weekend. Has there been any traction to that, Hank?
there is traction, but I keep prefacing it with like kind of the to be determined tag. There are plans in place for him to officially visit this weekend, starting on Friday. But Miami obviously doesn't want that to happen. I don't blame Miami for not wanting that to happen. So they're working on making that visit not happen, or keeping that visit from happening. So we're just, the plan. He has plans to be there, but we're gonna, just keep an eye on things Friday, see if he shows up. Obviously, I think, everything that's going into Kamani McLean's recruitment. I think obviously NIL is a big factor. So, I'm not sure how all this is going to play out. But if he does show up in Tuscaloosa tomorrow, I think that's a pretty positive sign. So, we'll just have to kind of wait and see. He's the only one that's kind of that tentative tag. Everybody else is, the James Smith, Quay Rousseau, Arian Carter. Those guys are all still anticipated to be on campus tomorrow.
And this is arguably will be the biggest recruiting weekend of the cycle before the finish, you would think, right? Because if Alabama wants to hold on to the number one class in the 24/7 Sports Composite, you just mentioned Quay Rousseau and James Smith. We mentioned them earlier in the first segment. That's the two of the top three prospects in the state of Alabama. They're going to be on campus getting the red carpet. And Arian Carter, who was named Mr. Football in Tennessee and has been one of the fastest risers. I know he is coveted by Alabama as well.
Yeah, and it's a huge weekend for Rousseau and Smith. Like you said, all of them. And what's interesting is this is currently what expected to be their last official visit, and that's, Auburn's trying to get them back on campus with their extra official they have. I've heard Ohio State wants to get them on campus. So next weekend's we'll see if anything happens. I would think that they'll probably give Auburn at least a look, maybe unofficially, and spend time with Hugh Freeze on campus, in that capacity. But, in terms of official visit, this is big. This is a chance for Bama to really close on this. And then, we'll see Nick Saban and Pete Golding and Freddie Roach and those guys visit them next week. So they'll have one more in-home with them when, that'll be their last chance to really get things, hammered down. But two more in-person visits. So, to Tuscaloosa and then the coaches on the road next week to see them. So Bama has a good chance to get this one done. And, everyone's it's been trending towards Bama. I guess, I think that's kind of the popular pick, but I keep writing, there's a lot of recruiting to be done. Obviously these guys are hearing from all these coaches. They're getting all these red carpet treatments. So still some time to go, but, I think Bama has a prime opportunity to really finish strong here with those two. Arian Carter, I think they're trending well with right now. I think Justin Jefferson's the commitment that's visiting this weekend. He's locked in, and he's a big pickup as well. And then Desmond Ricks, the 5-star cornerback. I'm not anticipating Bama to land him at this point, but another big time visitor this late in the cycle.
Well, and Hank, but if they don't, flip a Cormani McLean or a Malik Muhammad, or as you said, you're not anticipating Desmond Ricks. He reclassified from IMG. A lot of people believe he's headed to LSU. Where does Alabama turn at corner? Is it Tyler Scott, who I think had a great visit last weekend? You guys chronicled that. And then there's a young man who just named Alabama in his top 5. They've turned up the heat on him a little bit, C.J. Blocker from Houston. I mean, where does Alabama turn in your mind?
Yeah, I think you look at Tyler Scott. Like you said, that visit last weekend, I think really put Bama in a good spot for him. He's going to USC this weekend and then Texas the next weekend, or flip those, vice versa. Those two schools the next 2 weekends. So still some time to go with him, but I think Bama really put themselves in a strong position for him this past weekend. C.J. Blocker, the recent quarterback offer, maybe Bama presses for him, but I don't think there's been a huge press for him yet. But he's not signing until February, so he could be a guy they circle back on in the month of January. Damari Brown, the 4-star cornerback from South Florida, I think he's an interesting name to watch from that American Heritage program. I think things have gotten more interesting with him. Miami obviously wants to keep him home. But yeah, Malik Muhammad, we'll see if anything happens there. But they definitely got options at cornerback, and then if those guys don't work out, which I think they'll get probably one of those guys we just mentioned, but always can lean on the transfer portal too. That's what I keep writing is the transfer portal kind of takes off the pressure of if you have a miss at the high school level, you can go to the portal and kind of bandage it, not even bandage it, maybe even get a better edition. So it kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off there to really hit on all your big targets.
And finally, last couple of minutes with Hank South, and we really appreciate his time during this busy recruiting season for him. And check him out, BamaOnline.com, and give him a follow, please, everybody, at HankSouth247. Is there any traction? Could Alabama get a late visit out of a Peter Woods, or does he seem like he's solid to Clemson? Because I know the reviews from him this week in Hattiesburg for the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game have been that he's been dominant.
Yeah, I unless they're trying to keep it completely secret, which I don't think they're those kind of people. His family says they're not planning to visit Bama, so nor are they planning to have an in-home visit with the staff. So they're very, they've never lied to us once or anything like that, or been secretive about anything. So, I definitely take them for their word on that. So, unless something changes between now and next Friday, I don't think there's going to be a visit. I think he's pretty set on Clemson.
And let me correct myself. I think it was in Hattiesburg last year. This year it's in Mobile. Let me correct myself. Ben Thomas from Mail.com has been down there. Steve Wiltfong, who we've had on this show, National Director of Recruiting. Shows you how talented the cycle, though, is, Hank, for Steve Wiltfong to be down there getting some firsthand looks at these kids, because as you've wrote on BamaOnline.com, that's the one key here, is this is one of the deepest classes in Alabama State history.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, beyond that, and some of the guys aren't playing in the Alabama-Mississippi game, but, we do see Peter Woods down there. Kelby Collins is down there. Centurion Perkins, who is clearly, putting his making it evident why Bama wants to flip him so much, is down there. Jan J. Pierre, who's kind of flying under the radar of, maybe one of the most exciting Alabama commits in this class, coming off the edge. So, yeah, it's a loaded class, and Bama has a pretty prime opportunity to, sign James Smith and Quay Rousseau and really put a stamp on it with, landing the top guys.
And what about Centurion Perkins? I know at one time it seemed earlier this summer that he was imminently going to flip. He came down for Texas A&M. We haven't seen him back in Tuscaloosa. What is the inside word there?
Yeah, so we'll see. It's I kind of liken it to the Miami situation with Kalani McClain in that
gotcha.
Miami wants McClain to be done. They want him to sign early. They want him to they don't want him to visit Bama. I would think Ole Miss wants the same things. I think Ole Miss does not want Bama to be involved with for Perkins to get back to campus at Bama. But right now, the plan is that Perkins is going to sign in February and officially visit Bama in January. So, unless Ole Miss changes his mind with an in-home visit and, gets him to sign early, there's a few more weeks for this one to go. So we'll see. And, I think Perkins, even if you get a guy like Arian Carter, I think Perkins is a guy you have a spot for regardless, just because of how talented he is. We saw him single-handedly win the state championship for Raleigh, Mississippi High School, both offense and defense. So he's a do-it-all kind of kid, certainly a lot to like, and he's also having a really good week at the Alabama-Mississippi game as well.
Well, follow all that coverage from Hank South. Hank, we always appreciate it. Great stuff, great intel. Let everybody know what you guys have going on over at Bama Online and how to follow your coverage.
Yeah, thanks for having me. BamaOnline.com. My Twitter handle is @HankSouth247. Plenty of coverage on the road coverage. We'll have weekend visitors coverage. Obviously, big basketball game this weekend, so we'll be covering that as well. So, good time to jump on board and get ready for signing day.
No question. We look forward to speaking with you again soon down the road. But happy holidays to your family. We really appreciate it, and always enjoy the conversation, Hank. Have a great day.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Drew. You too.
That's Hank South. We're going to go on a break and wrap up this Thursday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D-Squared, Rudy Arman. Stay with us.
The Blitz has been called.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs: residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing, we have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates, residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. Check us out at FlemingHSV.com. FlemingHSV.com. When you need a quick response, it's Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
It's the geometry teacher who mans the ticket window.
It's the kid in grade school who paints her face blue and white before every home game.
It's the accountants and salesmen and store managers who give up their Friday evenings to referee.
It's the graduate who listens to the league championship game on the internet.
It's the parent who sells ads in the school athletic program.
It's the cashier at the corner convenience store who wears school colors on every game day.
It's the trainers, equipment managers, and ball boys who never miss a practice.
What makes high school sports here in Alabama so special? They do.
You do.
We all do.
High school sports. It's the we that every community needs. This message presented by the Alabama High School Athletic Association and the Alabama High School Athletic Directors and Coaches Association.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You're bringing your daughter to her favorite pop star's concert. Do you A, wear earplugs?
Isn't this fun, Dad?
I'll have a soft pretzel.
B, remember the moment with matching concert t-shirts?
That's gonna be $180.
Or we can just take a photo.
C, show her how you used to do concerts.
We're going crowd surfing.
I can't. He's too heavy. Oh my God.
Or D, just roll with it.
Woo! Justin! Look at us! We're over here!
Justin! OMG! He just looked. I love you, Justin! I love you!
When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers. But that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
How long does it take to get to the forest?
That's not far.
What are we gonna do? Hike?
Sure.
Are we there yet?
Yep, it's a short drive from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Visit discovertheforest.org, brought to you by the Ad Council and the U.S. Forest Service.
This hour of the Blitz is brought to you by Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Online at FlemingHSV.com.
Welcome back. If you want to join us, you can. Last few minutes of the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared, 256-576-4977. But we really give a lot of thanks to Hank South. What a great segment talking University of Alabama recruiting. As we talked about the upcoming huge visitors weekend, transfer portal tight end C.J. Dupre from Maryland, or Dupree. We'll have to figure out exactly how to pronounce his last name. But, again, he's an outstanding player for the Terrapins, who's gone into the portal, originally a Pennsylvanian, as we said. 30 catches for over 300 yards, 3 TDs. He will officially visit Alabama in some point in the next several days. And he's already gotten a handful of offers from Power 5 Division I programs. Alabama seems to want to bring in a tight end that can make an impact next year. Of course, Amari Niblack can be a flex guy, but we're talking about an every down guy. I would think Cam Latu is still going to go into the NFL draft and move on. We'll see, though. As you heard Hank say, certainly I think he has a COVID year now. He's already been on campus 5 years because he redshirted and then was a linebacker his first year, converted to tight end. It's been a process for him to become a full-time tight end, and he still struggles in the blocking aspect. But a good receiver, a solid guy, has been a big-time target for Bryce Young. So we will see what ultimately Latu decides. I would think he would move on to the NFL, but we will see. And I would think that pursuing CJ would be a kind of a you would that would make your eyebrows perk up a little bit and your ears, because when you're trying to hear and see things, make it open your eyes a little bit, that maybe they know he's going to move on to the NFL and not use that COVID year. Kendall Randolph from our community certainly did this year, his 6th year, but he's going to move on. But you would think that that's maybe the reason why they're trying to get an experienced guy for the transfer portal. James Smith, Quay Russaw, Arion Carter. Huge recruiting weekend. Justin Jefferson for Alabama. But we thank Hank South. Don't forget the afternoon blitz with the Bandy Man, Bailey Lowry, and Captain Cool John Abraham from 2 to 4. Max Schulman, UAH basketball, big road trip coming up, and against Mississippi College and, of course, Delta State, and then Crawdad Crawford previewing the Army-Navy game. Everybody have a great rest of your Thursday. We'll talk to you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. More recruiting on the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared. Have a great day.